And welcome, Hoosier fans, to this week's edition of Assembly Call Radio, where each week we discuss the most urgent topics in the world of Indiana basketball. This is our 156th edition of Assembly Call Radio, and it is our 579th episode overall of the Assembly Call, recorded on the evening of Thursday, January 30th, 2020. I am your host, Jerod Morris. And let's begin this edition of the Assembly Call how we begin every edition of the Assembly Call, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment.
And Indiana is the national champion.
When it comes down, Indiana will be champion.
Smart takes the shot.
The Hoosiers have won the national championship.
A late-game meltdown at home against Maryland and another second-half collapse on the road at Penn State do not reflect well on Indiana's upperclassmen, the players that you need to be able to count on to bring you home in such situations. So it goes without saying that Indiana is going to need more from Davonte, Deron, Justin, and Al over the next 5 weeks if the NCAA tournament drought is to end. But on the bright side, as we continuously assess what players on the current roster might be building blocks toward the next great Indiana team, we got some encouraging flashes from a number of underclassmen this week. First off, Trace is Trace. After a rough 4-game stretch during which he scored in double figures only once, Trace has been in double digits in each of the last 4 games, averaging 14.3 points and 8 rebounds per game. He's already rock solid and has legitimate All-American potential depending on how long he stays in school. What about the other guys? Well, against Michigan State, Race Thompson delivered the best stretch of minutes that he's played in his career. 4 points, 4 boards, and assists, 2 blocks, and 2 steals, all in 11 minutes. It's a sign of the disruptive physical force he can be for Indiana. Unfortunately, he took a hard fall and hasn't played since because, of course. Against Maryland, Jerome Hunter finally had the breakout performance that we've all been waiting for. He scored 12 points, hit 3 threes, grabbed 4 boards in 27 minutes. That's a sign of the lethal, versatile scoring option he can be for Indiana. Unfortunately, he fell ill prior to the Penn State game and didn't play because, of course. Against Nebraska, Michigan State, and Maryland, Armand Franklin delivered key stretches of offensive production and defensive awareness that either keyed Indiana runs or thwarted opposing momentum. It was a sign of the Swiss Army knife that he can be for Indiana. Unfortunately, he was just as productive as the rest of Indiana's guards against Penn State. And you can even throw Rob Finney in there, too. While acknowledging that he needs to be better, Rob struggled mightily against Penn State, but did average a respectable 7 points and 5 assists per game in the previous 3, while playing good defense against 2 of the Big Ten's best point guards. As for Demezy Anderson, well, unfortunately, the offseason talk of a sophomore year breakout still hasn't materialized yet for Demezy. This Indiana team seems destined to be up and down for the rest of the season. That just seems to be baked into this roster's DNA. But if these young players can continue to progress, it will have a major impact on Indiana's ability to make the NCAA tournament this season and to get the program back on more solid footing moving forward. All right, now let me introduce my esteemed co-host for this week's show. Andy is off tonight. He realized that he needed a break from talking IU hoops when his reaction to his daughter missing a long 2-pointer was to yell, "Damn it, Devonte," and then turn to his bench and angrily call for Cooper Bybee to get in the game. All the girls just looked at him like he was insane, which technically he was. So, Andy, get a good night's rest, please. Come back to us refreshed next week. Anyway, here with me tonight, to my left.
He remembers the days when a movie cost $1. Heaven help you if you ever decide to pop your collar. Play hard, but remember, fake hustle is a crime. He's the coach and it's Tonsoni time.
I put the ass in assembly.
It's Coach Brian Tonsoni. Coach, what's on your mind? You're muted, Coach. Coach, you're muted.
I got it. I had to shift. That's par for the course in the meltdown of everything.
Just casual microphone control.
That was yeah, exactly. Not mentally tough. Indiana's played a rough game, and it was just bad performance, and that is a program-wide thing, and there's probably responsibility that can go just about everywhere. It did follow, though, and I will remind people, 3 solid efforts, one that did come up short, so that's not, moral victories don't count. But yet the pattern of play has been better in the last 5 or 6 games, and I just ask people to keep that in mind while you struggle with the incredible bad play So focus on the body of work. I'll recall, go back and listen to Chad Schwarzkopf's comment yesterday I thought it was really good about the floor and the ceiling for this team. And I just think that the floor is a lot lower than I wanted it to be, or I thought it would be in the offseason. Probably with my rose-colored glasses, thought this team would be better. And the ceiling is you beat some good teams at home. And so I think that I'm trying to keep that in mind and trying to keep calm, even though the game yesterday was inexcusable. The body of work is 15-6. Most most bracketologists have 7, 8, or 9, and the bubble is awful. So deep breath, Indiana fans. Point out what was wrong because you're probably right, but we're okay, at least for now, and we can complain later if it continues.
And to my right, he is a senior writer for The Big Lead. His mom makes great tiramisu and writes great cookbooks, we just found out before the show started. And he promises to honor the memory of Kobe Bryant by bringing a Mamba mentality to every post-game rant for the rest of this season.
I have fully gone to the dark side.
Ryan, what is your rant this week? God, you're muted too.
I know, I'm having trouble with it too.
What is going on here?
Hey, you know what? After last night, we're
like live ball turnover.
We're allowed to have a down stretch here.
I need to be able to bench both of you right now.
Exactly. Well, our coach doesn't
bring in the
bench
walk-ons
guys when they're not playing well. So
God.
No, I'm going to talk about that though in my rant. And it looks like with this, we've talked about the 4-guard set and how there's 4 guards on this team really who can play in Armand Franklin, Devontae Green, Al Durham, and Rob Finney. And there are just going to be games where they get nothing from those guys. I mean, they just are. That's been the pattern. Is there are games where those guys are just going to tank and just not play well. And you know what? Quite frankly, it's gotten to the point where it's happening enough. Archie Miller needs to be able to look down that bench and find somebody else, because there are games where these guys aren't going to perform. I realize those guys might not be as athletic. They might not be as good defensively, but there are guys on that bench who really want to play for Indiana and who will put forth the effort, even if they're a lower grade than the guys you get on the floor. Their effort and intensity will cancel some of that out. And even if it's for a 2-minute stretch, you send the message that just because you're a scholarship player doesn't mean that you get to play at Indiana. And if you don't put forth the effort, intensity, and toughness, as my friend Coach Tonsoni over there talks about, if you don't put that forward, you're not going to play. And I'd rather have that guy on the floor. That needs to start happening, because right now those 4 players know that no matter what they do, they're going to be in the rotation the next game because there's no other option. It's a thin backcourt. And when this backcourt plays like garbage, as it did last night, there needs to be a threat of, no, we don't need you anymore. We're going to go get that guy. And I'd rather lose with that guy than who's less talented than lose with you out there. That needs to happen, because we're at the point with this backcourt where, 2 of the guys in the backcourt are upperclassmen and captains, and they're not producing for you. And they're not, look, I'm not as down as Al Durham, because I at least feel like most of the time, while he's not a great on-ball defender, while he doesn't show up offensively all the time, at least I see effort out there. And at least I see him, every other game, at least going hard and trying to pump his teammates up and things like that. I don't see that from Devontae Green. And I don't see play that's good for the team from Devontae Green. And so there needs to be a message sent at this point. And halfway through that second half last night, it should have been sent. And so Archie Miller, while I think that as Coach Tonsoni said, the body of work this year is pretty darn good, and they had a stretch of some really good games, at some point you got to send that message, because we've seen this for several years from these guys, and it's time to start sending a message, and it's time to start holding them accountable for what they're doing and holding them accountable for that play, because it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to them, and it should be unacceptable to their teammates and their coaches as well.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about this week. We'll take a quick look ahead to this weekend's game against Ohio State, which is looming quite large now that Indiana's on a 2-game losing streak. What can be done about Indiana's long stretches of casual and unfocused play? Ryan gave you a little preview there, but we're going to talk about that in segment 2. Then we got a whole bunch of questions from you, and so we will obviously delight in answering those in segment number 3. All of that coming on this week's edition of Assembly Call Radio. Before we get to all of that, a quick reminder about tickets. If you are looking for tickets to IU basketball games, for the remainder of the season, either home or away. And once March comes and you're thinking about going to the tournament, SeatGeek is the place to look. They deliver the best ticket buying experience with their website and app, and they also will help you identify the best ticket value so that you get the best possible seat for your money. And best of all, you get $10 off your first purchase with the promo code ASSEMBLY. So use the URL iutickets.shop. That's iutickets.shop because it will take you directly to the IU basketball ticket listing on SeatGeek. And then use the promo code ASSEMBLY when you purchase so that you can get $10 off your first purchase. And also, don't forget, coming up on Saturday, February 8th, we are going to be in Bloomington for the IU Purdue game. And following that game, at Switchyard Brewery, it is Podcast on the Drink, which is what we're calling it. It's our joint live show with Crimson Cast. We're going to do an IU Purdue live post-game show. It's going to be really fun. Obviously, it gives us a chance to meet you, talk to you. Thank you for being a member of the Assembly Call audience. So if you can get there to Switchyard Brewery after the game, please come join us. If you can't, but you're going to be at the game, let us know because we'd love to see you, meet you, shake your hand. But we will be in town February 7th through the 9th. So as many of you as we can meet and say hi to, we would certainly love to do that. All right, gentlemen, let's talk IU Ohio State. This is an Ohio State team that reached number 1 in the country in KenPom on December 29th. Since then, they are 2-6. One of those losses was that home game at Indiana. They are ranked 56th in Torvik during that stretch. So the 56th best team in the country since December 29th when they were number 1. Their only wins during that stretch are over Northwestern and Nebraska. They are starting to play a little bit better. They lost on a last-second shot to Minnesota, then pounded Northwestern on the road. So anytime you win on the road in the Big Ten, it's at least something. But suspensions and injuries have hurt. And, Coach, I saw a tweet from Adam Jardy, Ohio State beat writer. He said, Buckeyes coach Chris Holtmann didn't want to get specific, but said the team is dealing with injuries to multiple players and said this is a big week for them to get back to health. You know, obviously, I say rest them all. Rest all those guys till after the weekend.
Jerod, I'm not sure if you just saw, like, literally as you were doing that ad read, they announced that DJ Carton won't play on Saturday, too. So.
Which I'm gonna take that as a positive for Indiana, although he did turn the ball over.
He's taking time for a personal issue, so good luck. You know, we wish him well. Hope he's okay, but he will not play on Saturday.
We do. No, and we wish all of those guys well. I'm kidding, but Coach, as you look at this game for Indiana, it's big for both teams. You know, Ohio State needs to get going. They're 3-6 in the conference. Indiana obviously needs a win. You know, I think you should see two pretty desperate teams fighting, scratching, clawing for this victory because it's a really big one.
Well, it's really big for Indiana to not get into a losing streak because that's the only thing really that can derail their NCAA tournament hopes. You want to count on winning at home against Purdue and IU, but the Big Ten is tough, and you can't count on that. So that makes it big for Indiana. If they could split on the road, it makes it a little more easy to take what happened the other night, if that is at all possible. But I think it's even bigger from a bracketology standpoint for Ohio State to lose at home against an Indiana, and your only win in about 5 games is Northwestern. That really puts Ohio State behind the 8 ball as it heads further down the seed list. So, yes, it's a big game. It's on the road. I'm not expecting road wins anymore, just so I don't really totally lose everything and my sanity. And so if we get 1 or 2, I'll just be jumping for joy. And big game for sure. And I think Indiana can win every game on their schedule. I think they can lose every game on their schedule too. And we just don't know until we see what happens on that particular game day.
That's kind of where I'm at. I'm not expecting road wins, but at this point, I am expecting better road efforts. You know, I'm expecting better than what we saw against Penn State. We might lose to Ohio State, but we better go up there and make it a 40-minute game, and actually compete well and have something to walk away from that game feeling good about. No more of this just being completely non-competitive in the second half. I mean, that stuff just has to stop, Ryan. As you look at this game, and obviously we saw what Indiana did to beat Ohio State in the first game, what do you think are going to be the keys to victory to do it again?
They're going to have to pound the ball inside. They're going to have to get inside. They're going to have to get to the free throw line. Because you can pretty much bank on them on the road not shooting it very well. And so they're going to have to pound the ball inside and score points in the paint and just absolutely bludgeon Ohio State in the paint, hold Wesson down a little bit, and then guard the 3 and make sure they don't get bombed on from deep. And that's really all. That's it right there. Ohio State will not be able to repeatedly beat Indiana inside with anybody but Wesson. So you try and contain Wesson to a degree, make sure he doesn't get hot from deep like Jalen Smith did. And which I don't expect him to, but then you also guard the three, make sure their guards don't get hot, because if their guards get hot at home, get comfortable, they'll start hitting threes. And then, again, Indiana, it's hard for Indiana to come back from behind consistently when you think about it, if another team is shooting well, because they do it 2 at a time and another team can get 3, so they have to really if they're behind, they have to shut the other team down completely to come back. They can't get a lot of cheap points on trips where they're doing 3-2 with teams. It's just not the way they're built. And so what you need to do is you need to establish things inside, get some calls, which they didn't get against Penn State. I mean, to their credit, the post guys worked their tails off at Penn State in stretches and didn't get any calls. I thought Deron Davis played really well. I thought Trace Jackson Davis did everything he could and got no help all night. And while on the other end, the Penn State at home was getting the calls you get at home.
It's one of the perils of Indiana's strategy, as we talked about before the show went live.
If you're not getting calls, I mean, the fact that Indiana only shot 2 free throws in the second half against Penn State with how physical that game was inside was ridiculous. If you want to call it that way, that's fine. But you gotta, as Coach and I talked about before the air, you're fine with that if they do that both ways. But that was clearly not the case last night. And Joey Bronk and those guys got in foul trouble. They can't do that. The interior guys on this team cannot get into foul trouble. And
I think Joey and Duran battling down low against Wesson, they did a good job. Joey really did a good job, but the pick and pop option for Wesson is always a concern with Joey and Duran as well. And as we've seen, that has just given us fits all night long or all year long. So that I would, if I'm Ohio State, I'd move him in, then move him back out and try to mix it up against Indiana's what I thought was good interior post defense against Ohio State the first time.
Which, again, makes it so you might have to put Trace on Wesson at times because he's a little better out on the floor, a guy you really miss. I mean, you hate putting an inexperienced guy on a guy like Wesson, but a guy you really miss is Race Thompson, who can guard on the perimeter. So hopefully he's healthy. We don't know. We've heard nothing about Race and really nothing about Jerome. We're just all assuming Jerome's sick, and that seems to be what everybody was led to believe. But Indiana's really tight-lipped with the injuries. They always are. But I think that as far as this game goes, Indiana has to dominate in the paint. That's where they're going to win. And that's the recipe. It doesn't matter who they play for the rest of the year. That has to be the recipe. They have to score.
And someone's got to shoot well. I mean, that's, Devontae and Rob both shot well in that first game against Ohio State. Someone's going to have to make some shots too.
Yeah, Rob hit 3 in the first, 5 minutes of that game or 6 minutes of that game.
Got us going.
So it also opened up the floor because every time Rob got the ball after that, they had to be cognizant of him shooting it. So,
Devontae's played well before there, too. That's one thing you look at with guys. Have they had success in a road venue? He should have some comfort there because he's had a big game there before. Maybe that's something that can help spur him on.
Yeah, and I think Al Durham's got to get off more shots. I mean, he hit 1 of 1 against Penn State in the first half and then just kind of disappeared after that in the first half. And that's a guy who, if he gets his feet set, should be shooting. And he's been better lately. And he's going to have to make some.
Devontae's had 4 good games in the last 12, so that's 1 out of 3. So he might be. You never know when that pop bottle's going to shake and explode. Yeah. I don't know how you find out, but maybe
you run him out there and you see.
Here's the thing. I think we all agree the recipe for the rest of the season is going to be the same. It's going to be scoring inside and getting the free throw line. That's what this team was built to do. That's what they have to do. Guys, obviously, you have to make a shot here and there to keep the other team honest. You have to drive from the perimeter. Rob Finney was doing a lot of side-to-side, east-west dribbling against Penn State. And Penn State's an athletic, pretty good defense. And so, you understand that it might have been harder to find creases and seams, but you got to force that action sometimes, get up the floor, get into the lane, even if you don't make a shot, get fouled, go to the free throw line, reset the offense, all of those things. So you got to start going north-south instead of east-west if you're on the perimeter, and you got to pound the ball inside.
And just a reminder, the postgame show should be pretty fun. We have Mark Titus from Titus and Tate fame. The great Mark Titus. He will be joining us. He's been on the show before, but he'll be joining us for that. We got to remember to tell him that that's live on the radio. Watch the language for the postgame.
Oh, yeah?
Show. We need to remember that. Yes.
Have you messed that up before?
No, we've done a pretty good job with that, I think. But let's make sure. So I think, are you going to be there Saturday? Because I think Andy and Coach are both out.
Yeah, I can be
Us?
unless you just want to do a two-man weave with Titus. I know he takes up a lot of the air in the room for good reason. So depends what you want to do. No, I mean just winding him up and letting him go is fun. So yeah, I'd love to be on it, but I'd understand if people just want to hear Mark Titus go.
No. I think
okay.
We'll wind both of you up, and then we'll see.
All right, good. That'll be fun.
It'll be fun.
I'll wear the IU hat. He can wear the Ohio State one, and we'll just go.
Or if Indiana wins, he can just switch to an IU hat and change his allegiance back to his childhood allegiance of Indiana. So, all right.
Hopefully, he and Tate are going back to Maui next year, and everybody can meet him.
Oh, that's true. That is true. All right, coming up, gentlemen, let's talk about the issue that has frustrated IU fans more than anything when the team loses like it did on Wednesday night. The bouts of poor focus and effort that seem to just snowball in the second halves of games. Why? And what can be done about it? We'll discuss. Stick with us here on the Assembly Call. All right. Hello to everybody out there watching live. We appreciate you all being here, especially those of you, and I see many of you who were here for the Penn State postgame show, and you're here again on Thursday night. You guys are truly awesome. And by the way, I'm going to drop this link in here. I keep forgetting to do it. Megan set this up for us, so some of you know this and some of you may not, but we actually have, like, for the chat mob, because we refer to you guys as the chat mob, we actually had shirts made for the chat mob. And certain folks, like the first ballot chat mobbers, like Jen and Megan and Chad and those folks have all gotten them, and we kind of did the inductions. There's so many now, we probably can't do it that way, but we want to give you the opportunity. So go to that link if you want to be an official member of the chat mob and have a chance to get that T-shirt. Click that link. It'll give you a chance to just fill that out. I think we ask for you to submit an audio file with your greatest IU basketball memory. If you say something funny, that could be chopped up and used as a drop. I'm not going to promise that it won't be. But
that never happens, though.
Never. But do that because we want to get some more of those chat mob shirts out there. And I just forgot to do it before. So I'll tweet that link out again later, too.
Worth noting.
No, don't share it. That's only for the chat mob folks here who are live. So it's not to be tweeted, but I meant I'll post it in the chat.
Worth noting, a week from right now, I will be in Bloomington. I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh, so you're getting in Thursday night.
Yeah, we're getting in Thursday. We're going to go to dinner and then do Friday because Madeline's never been. So we're going to do campus all day Friday.
Nice.
All that stuff. Maybe lunch at Nick's. If
That's
you
nice.
guys are going to be around, look me up.
What time's dinner on
7:30, I think.
You got to do
Friday.
AC radio, coach.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Thursday night.
I guess Ryan could do it. You could just be on your phone on Zoom walking around Bloomington
while I'm at dinner.
Yeah. You're at dinner in Bloomington.
Hi guys, I miss you. No, we'll do some fun. I can do some assembly call Twitter content.
You should.
From campus and such.
Dude,
if
it
step
was
it up like the Hoosier Hysterics guys,
Yeah, why not? I
Yeah,
don't want to try and
come on, they've upped the bar.
Awesome.
Let's go.
If it was warm enough, I could bring all my stuff down there, and we could sit at the sample gates, Ryan and I, and just broadcast if we had Wi-Fi.
That would be awesome.
Put a little box down there for donations for the two of us, and just riff IU basketball.
Well, it's funny because we keep
in that park down there. And what's the name of that park? And we can get some extra benefits.
Oh boy, yeah.
Wasn't gonna say
what is the name of that park?
Oh my gosh, it's escape.
That one down there off
right across from Kilroy's.
Yeah.
Where you get contact
People's
high
Park.
just walking right to
People's Park.
People's Park. That's right.
So Madeline, my girlfriend, will be there, everybody, and she grew up in the desert 2 hours east of here and has really never experienced the kind of cold that can come to Indiana. So it's
not going to be like
I know it's not
bad.
We're trying to. Would you let me scare her a little, please?
Okay. Well, I mean, for her that might be bad. I don't know. I looked at it and said,
"What is the forecast?
What is it?"
When I looked, 40s? It was like high of 40.
High of 40,
20s at night, which is fine.
20s at night. Sound good, babe?
Yeah.
She's real excited.
Leaving that bar at night, though, walking in that cold, it's gonna be battling. It ain't gonna be pretty. You're gonna need to have a sweater or two.
Or just drink it warm.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. So let's Yeah, so let's talk about
it's funny. As soon as that cold hits, I have flashbacks to being in school there, though. Even here, it'll get down to like 40 one night, like crazily, randomly, like the lowest it'll ever get. It'll be 40, and I'll be like, oh God, I feel like I'm walking to Nick's.
That's why I'm telling you. That's why people think I'm crazy, but I like the cold because it reminds me of being home. It reminds me of being in Indiana. Reminds me of like going to basketball practices when it's frigid out and you got to get all bundled up and then take everything off when you get to practice. Those were fun times. Fun times.
All right, let's do this.
Let's do it. All right. By the way, I saw someone say something about Race Thompson being soft. That's ridiculous. That stuff is nonsense. Like, these are college athletes. Those guys are tough, and they're
Race Thompson had a concussion to where he couldn't be in a room with lights on without having problems, and then he landed as hard as you can on his tailbone.
That was a hard fall.
If you haven't done that before, if that hasn't ever happened to you before, you do not have the right to talk about it. That happened to me once, and from my butt to my shoulders hurt for 3 weeks. Like, it's not fun.
You're not soft if you get injuries. There is. We're going to talk about it in the next segment. There is some soft play where you're not aggressive and you're passive, and the word soft may be used with how you're playing the game. But when you get injured, soft has no business. Being used. You really
just type butt to shoulders on our.
I'm making a note so I can go get that. I can use that.
Thanks, buddy. Trying to open. I'm just gonna stop talking.
No. Come on. We never pull that stuff back.
Yeah, never. Doesn't ever
in the show. Okay,
let's go. You should save the drops for the off season mostly. We have.
I do. I don't have time to get as many of them now, and we don't have much time to use them. Things are very serious in season. We don't have time for tomfoolery. We got an NCAA tournament to get back to. Dadgummit. All right, you ready?
Yep.
Let's do this. Okay, here we go.
What's going on? It's Christian Wofford. What's the only thing better than an epic buzzer beater? Celebrating it with friends afterwards. Join my guys Jerod, Andy, Bryant, and Coach on the assembly call after every IU game. Go Hoosiers.
Thank you, Christian. Welcome back to the Assembly Call. You can find all of our content at our website, assemblycall.com. And if you ever want to join the chat mobbers during our unedited live broadcast or watch those replays and see all of the between segment banner, then check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. All right, I'm Jerod Morris. I'm here with Ryan Phillips and the coach, Brian Tonsoni. And guys, let's talk about these stretches of just kind of poor, casual, unfocused play that we've seen from Indiana and talk about it in terms of what can be done about it. So I want to preface this conversation with a couple things. I think we all agree this year's IU team has a lot of skill deficiencies, lack of shooting, inconsistent ball pressure, inability to consistently feed the post, although, getting better at that, and on down the line. This year's team also has some roster deficiencies. No go-to creator on offense, only 4 ball handlers, no natural leadership among the upperclassmen, etc. So we know that it's an imperfect team. But the deficiency that most consistently frustrates Indiana fans seems to be the one that should theoretically be most within the players' and coaches' ability to control. And that is these frequent and extended periods of unfocused and casual play that we see from this year's team and that we became accustomed to, unfortunately, from last year's team as well. And, the issue isn't just that these stretches of unfocused and casual play happen, because they happen to all teams. The issue is the frequency, because it seems abnormal and it's frighteningly predictable, especially in road games. So do we, Coach Ryan, I just want to make sure that we're operating kind of under the same assumptions here. Do you agree with everything that I just said?
Absolutely. There is no excuse for it, and I'm big on responsibility. The coach has responsibility to try to fix it. The players themselves have some individual responsibility to try to fix it. And right now, on the road, it's not being fixed. At home, it's a whole different ballgame, and this team shows that they're capable of playing with that focus and the right levels of energy. It is really difficult to appreciate a team that at the 9-minute mark just kind of stops playing. And then I will say to everyone, there's just different ways to try to go about fixing it, and there's no guarantees. There are pluses with benching. There are minuses with benching. There are pluses with letting the guy play out a bad stretch and getting it on film and busting his rear end in film session. And there's negatives. So I just have been asking people in my Twitter feed and everything to take just a real nuanced look at what are all the possibilities with all the different ways of trying to fix this, and know that there is just no guarantee. Getting the casual play out of a team, and I've had that in our squads, it is very difficult. I've done some good things. I've done some bad things. And sometimes it's a flip of the coin whether what you decide is going to work. It is a lot tougher than deciding zone or man or running this play because it's a psychology thing. And, in fact, I think great coaches need to be psychology majors more than basketball majors. And we're just in the middle of a funk when we travel. But the responsibility's everywhere, and everyone who's upset with Archie is okay, and everyone who's upset with the players, you're okay to do that. Just be fair and understand that I think Archie wants to fix it, and I think the players ultimately want to fix it, and it's just not getting done.
Ryan, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I mean, no, I agree with you, Jerod. I just the problem is that when you see patterns emerge consistently over a long period of time, and this goes back to last year, it goes back to the year before. I mean, we've seen this repeatedly, and it to me, it's and I agree with Coach. It's a shared responsibility. A team is not just the coach's responsibility; it's the player's responsibility. It's the assistant coach's responsibility. It's everybody around the team. When they say a team, it's not a coach over here and then players over here. They all got to be in this together. And the only time it works is when there's chemistry between those two parts. That's where you get a championship, is where the team, regardless of their talent level, is on the same level as their coach, and they meld and it works together. What I'll say is that if you're a coaching staff and you consistently see these patterns play out and you're not changing things, whether it's home, road, wherever, I realize the team has played better at home. If you see those things changing, or those patterns emerging, and you see the same thing happening over and over, you got to change something. And I mentioned that in my opening rant. It was put somebody in there who hasn't been in there before. Maybe it sparks something. I know that Thompson would be a good guy to have for energy, but he's not there. Maybe somebody else comes in and for a couple minutes sparks something, takes a charge or does something, and all of a sudden the rest of the team gets changed up. When you put the same guys back out there over and over and over again, and they do the same thing over and over and over again, it's the definition of insanity. You're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You're not going to get different results. And that's what worries me about the staff. What worries me, you're right, it is an imperfect roster. And there are players who do not fit what Archie Miller wants to do. The toughness, the hard nose, sort of get on the deck and fight for every inch you're going to get. He has players who aren't going to do that. And there's recruiting misses. There's other things in there that are to blame for that. Guys they went out to really get and didn't get. I mean, that happens. But it's about melding the players you have and having them play that way. And guess what? If they don't play that way, you got to go with somebody else. And so I just think that you're looking at a team that's exhibiting similar patterns over and over and over again, and you got to do something different because you're just going to get it for the rest of the year. We're resigned to that fact that this team's going to do this for the rest of the year. And that's not an okay place to be. And look, you can go back to that Maryland game. He tried to do something different. He had a different lineup sort of on the court at the end of the game. Like it had been that lineup that had played well the last couple games. It wasn't like the classic beginning of the season lineup. And they kind of screwed up, but a couple people were sort of like okay with it. Some of the observers were okay with it because they were giving a guy like Jerome a chance to play in crunch time, in a big situation. He made a mistake. He'll learn from that. But at least it wasn't the usual suspects making the same mistakes. That Maryland game was a collapse. There's no way to delicately put that. It was a horrible, horrible collapse. But at least it wasn't the same pattern of the same guys coasting to the finish of a game over the last 5 minutes, not giving all they had or having a big drought or any of that. It was people just making mistakes. You can live with mistakes. You can't live with lackadaisical play and no heart.
Right. Yeah, just the casual stuff.
I will just bring this up because I do agree with you. But Davontea was benched after Northwestern. He responded really well, as Jerod had said in previous shows, that he seems to respond really well after benching. and he played 29 minutes and was 5 of 8 from the field and only had 1 turnover in that. But after that, 15 minutes against Rutgers, 14 against Nebraska, 13 against Michigan State in Indiana's biggest win of the year, 22 in Maryland where he did some things well, and it looked like he played okay, so they rode him a little bit more.
He played really well in the first half of that game. It's as good as he's played in a while.
But he had 3 turnovers, and then 21.5 against Penn State, and I think the last 4 minutes were just, hey, this game got out of hand because you're not playing well. I'm just going to let you go out there and try to work your way out of it. I don't know that I agree with that in the last minute there.
Yeah, I don't like that.
But
no, I would have
I get that, and I don't disagree.
It's an opinion.
I don't disagree with you, but I'd rather have Rob Finney out, Trace Jackson Davis out, because I don't want injuries in those last 4 minutes of those things. So that's what I'm saying about there's always another side to doing that.
Yeah. And my point was, there's guys on the other end of that bench. You're going to lose this game. You're down 20. Get Devante.
We also don't know that those guys are earning time in practice either.
Maybe
We're assuming
they're not
because they're walk-ons. So that's, all of these conversations have to have the caveat that the coaches know more.
But
and they're there in practice. But I agree. And so the point that I want to make here is that, on the one hand, Coach, a lot of the stuff that you say is true. And there are some definite personality conflicts, it feels like, with the upperclassmen guys. You just have guys that are a little bit more prone to kind of being casual, just in the way they play. And you look at scouting reports of Devontae Green, and you read that. I mean, that's stuff that goes way back, and that's not even a guy he recruited. So you've got to deal with that, right? And there's only so much he's going to be able to do. Archie is not just going to make those guys change their personalities, and that is unfair to expect. But, and here's the concern, and Coach, this is kind of what you and I were emailing about until like 2 o'clock in the morning last night. Any team is ultimately a reflection of its coach. And over time, a team is going to reflect what a coach emphasizes and what a coach tolerates. And I think this is going to be especially true for college athletes who are still young adults and who still need discipline and boundaries to develop fully. And we've seen when Indiana teams are good, they have those boundaries and they have that discipline. And so my issue with all of this is that now that we're midway through year 3, if these abnormally prolonged bouts of unfocused and casual play are regularity for a program that has goals of returning to the nation's elite, because we shouldn't be comparing Indiana to the other teams that are in the 30s and 40s of KenPom. That's not where we want to be. We want to be up with the elite teams. So if we're, comparing ourselves there, then at a minimum, I think it's fair to wonder if the coach is emphasizing the right things or being too tolerant of the wrong things. And if either of those is the case, and again, we don't know the full picture, so I can't say for sure that it is. We only see these 40-minute snapshots a couple times a week. The question that kind of gnaws at me a little bit, and I'm not saying I know the answer to it, and I'm not saying I'm not fully supportive of Archie, because I am, but how can we be confident that the problems will be fixed simply through time and either graduation or attrition when, maybe some of these guys have moved on? And so, Coach, to the point that we were making last night, in a micro sense, I understand why Archie was limited last night with what he can do. He's down 2 front court players. None of the guards are playing well. No lineup combination clicked. His players just didn't hold up their end of the bargain in the second half. And I know he has a better idea of what buttons to try to push than any of us do. But in a macro sense, what I saw over the final 2 minutes was a bunch of upperclassmen going through the motions to the point where my visceral reaction just watching it was to want to see wholesale lineup changes, like what Ryan said. Even if it's 5 walk-ons, just get them out there. Just to see that a lack of hustle and focus wouldn't be tolerated by the coach whose job it is to be the steward of, the resources and history and standards of IU basketball. And to me, just watching it last night, it felt like everyone, coaches included, threw the towel in over the last couple of minutes. And, I get it. It's a long season. The game was out of reach. But to me, that kind of just give up, and that's how I felt. And maybe that's not actually what it was, but it's just how I felt watching it on TV. That to me is unacceptable. So, and that's where I worry about the standard that's being set. That's it. And I know there's only so much that can be done about it with this team and these guys, but what kind of foundation is being laid? That's where I get a little worried.
The key word was visceral reaction. And as people outside of the program, that happens a lot. And as coaches,
as I said, I fully understand that could be an incomplete picture.
If you coach angry, you are going to end up making more mistakes than right decisions. That doesn't mean that was still the right decision, because at that point, I do see your point, and I do kind of get it. When you're down 18, put the walk-ons on, make a statement. but it was just coming off 3 straight games. And I heard a coach, I listen to coaches' podcasts and stuff all the time. I want to say it was Izzo on Andy Katz or something. And he asked, when you lose a game like you do to Purdue, do you go to practice, put the trash bins on and run them? That's just how it was when I grew up. You knew you were in for a horrible time, scaring us out of playing that way again. And it was Izzo or some coach said, no, honestly, I used to do a lot of that. Now I'm worried about the confidence after a loss because kids these days are extremely fragile, whether that's right or not, and that we don't want the lack of confidence to go 2 or 3 games in a row. And so we really work on the mental approach after a loss. Well, you see that with this Indiana team. On the road, when adversity hits, they stop playing and they can't handle that adversity. That is a tough, tough thing. Does Archie need to fix it? Absolutely, he needs to fix it. We grew up at a time where benching was the absolute best way to get people's attention, and it still might be. But there is that double sword that if Devante feels disrespected, now you have him for 8 games left with no chance of having a good game or a bad game. And if we're okay with that, then you got to do something to not play him at all. But then you got to live with maybe someone in the locker room who is really cashed it in. Team chemistry is
here's what I would say to that. I mean, that is a great point. And this is to get back to your point where coaches have to be good at psychology. They also have to be good at selling their ideas and selling the moves that they make. So, I mean, if you pull a guy off and, say Devante is just not playing hard. Devante, we have 2 minutes left in this game. You are a good basketball player. I am not going to let you embarrass yourself by playing like this over the final 2 minutes. So if you don't want to be out there and play hard, we're going to let the other guys play because you should not be putting that on film.
Jerod, all due respect, that's what you want from Jerod, or that's what you want from Coach. We don't know that he's not doing that in film session. We don't know that he's ripping that guy. Now, I have heard that he has tried to be too much of a player's coach, so I will give that to everyone who's on the anti-Archie Miller, and it kind of shows that might be. He got a mix of players and tried to make sure that everyone was happy and cohesive. But he said in Evansville, this team's got to buy in and fight for minutes, and they got to be okay with limited minutes. So that sent to me that, if this team's together, they're going to be okay. So my point is we want things as fans, and we're not wrong because all of what you said is a right way and a way to get that message across. We don't know, what's going on in other places to say that it's definitely the only thing that can happen, and when he's not doing it, he's not being a good coach. That's all I'm saying.
Fair enough. No, that is true. That is true.
Here's what I want to say. You can criticize and critique Archie Miller and not be anti-Archie Miller. And I think that we all know that.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I'm going to critique and criticize when I see something because of how I feel about it. But
he's not getting the job done. I mean, that's the truth.
And look, Archie Miller's
on the road.
Like, I know there are people, and I deal with this in my Twitter timeline all the time. I'll tweet something. I'll be like, Archie's the wrong guy for IU. He should be gone in 2 months. His boss is leaving. Archie's going to be here, guys, regardless of whether or not you want it. He's going to be here for a couple more years. I mean, look at his contract.
He should be. I mean, he's done enough to earn that,
But look at his contract and tell me where they're going to get out of that. Like, honestly, go look. It's financially impossible for Indiana to get rid of Archie Miller next year. That's not a criticism. I'm just saying that if you're on that train that Archie needs to go, you're going to be disappointed. Here's what I will say, and I wanted to chime in what you guys were talking about. That discussion was really good, is that game was tied at halftime. Indiana was doing what it needed to do in the first half. Now, Penn State wasn't playing great. Indiana wasn't playing great. Indiana had foul trouble. They didn't have the guys in the game they wanted to get in the game, but they were tied at halftime and wound up getting smoked. That's a problem. The problem is you had Penn State adjusted, did whatever it did to hurt Indiana's offense, and Indiana wilted under that pressure. That's a problem for everybody involved in the program, that you weren't tough enough to get through whatever Penn State was doing. Because physically, from a talent standpoint, there's no reason that should not have been a good game down to the wire on the road, even though it was on the road. And even without
Race and Jerome, that upped the degree of difficulty, but still no reason. Yeah.
Those two teams were tied at halftime, and only tied at halftime because Indiana gave up a late bucket it shouldn't have given up. So, I mean, they were playing okay, and they came out well. They started very well. They were intense. They weren't making shots, but they were intense and they were in the game. The announcers kept talking about it, and I'm sitting there and rarely agree with BTN's announcers. I was with them. I thought Indiana was focused. I thought they were locked in, at least defensively. And that second half was a joke from Indiana. It has to be better, and that's on everybody.
So here's the last question that I'll ask, Coach, because I agree with you, and you have to try and deal with people as individuals. And Archie, he's got to try and make the most out of this season because he's got to keep some positive momentum going and find a way to make the NCAA tournament this year while also keeping an eye toward the future. So I guess my question is, and I know there's no perfect answer for it, at what point do you just have to draw a line and sacrifice, I don't want to say sacrifice a player, but, make an example or say, look, I'm not going past this. I want this to work out with you. And I'm not saying any of the guys are there yet either, but how do you know that as a coach when that's the line? Because you have to have a line in the sand, something that your program is built on that you're not going to let it go past that. And gosh, we've seen a lot of these stretches of that kind of play. It would seem like we have to be getting close to that.
Two things. When you think the person is definitely an absolute detriment every time he steps on the court, then you're going to have to not play him. And the other thing was there were 4 guards and a forward that were playing casual. So the bench, yes, that's where your comment of bringing the walk-ons on. But, Indiana gave up a 7-0 run in a minute 15. In this game of basketball right now, momentum can shift like that with a couple of steals and threes on the break. And so, maybe at the 4-minute mark or the 3:30 mark was when that game was 18 and probably over. You just got to be careful about that. There's just, again, I don't know what's right, Jerod, because benching I've used the bench a lot as a coach, and for the right people, it works. For other people, it causes even more problems than you wanted. But we all thought Devante needed to be a top scorer. I mean, in the mediocre polls of the year, we all said, I think we took, Devante, and he just has not been that. And so if you're willing to say that can never show up, even if it wins 1 game or 2 games, and I think the minutes played of 13, 14, and 15 are perfect for him if he's not going to bring it and then, rest the other kids. But if it is a problem, the line is he doesn't play anymore. And now you're down to 3 guards. And I just think that that has to be a last-ditch situation. I saw people say take his captainship away, take his scholarship away. That you're getting into really tough future problems if you take such a drastic turn because of his poor play.
That would kill recruiting, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So
that's stupid.
You can't do that. And again, I don't know what the solution is. I just know my worry is just, are we building the foundation for the way Archie wants to play? Because it doesn't feel like what we thought it was going to be 3 years ago,
We, total different levels. I always say that because I don't want to act like I know what goes on in college, but we're in the 3rd year of building our culture. We finally got tough guys. We had guys we had to play in years before that didn't meet that, and we just had to play them if we had a chance for the guys who we knew were going to be culture guys to get some success and get some wins. Yeah. And so how long? I don't know. Is it 3 years, 4 years? What's fair, right, to say? The thing I put in the community, I really stumbled across of, if we honestly took a poll of the players that we were most frustrated with and the players that we are really proud of and enjoy playing, whether they're TJD or Jerome Hunter or Race, which I think most people enjoy, there is a easy divide between upperclassmen and underclassmen, and 6 of the 7 recruits in the last 2 years, I think, would fall into categories for most of the chat mob and most of us that we really enjoy seeing play. And I think that's something I'm trying to remember, too, and get away from my frustrations of, get that guy out of there. And we all scream at the TV, get him out of the lineup. I have for 50 years. I'm just trying to be and I'll say this to you guys, and I mean it. You guys, when I found the show, you guys really calmed me down as a fan, and I stopped yelling, get him out of the lineup and all that anger. And I definitely don't do it on Twitter because these are young men and it's a young coach and all of that stuff. But we all do that. And that's what we want to see. I just think it's, and I know from my experience, it's really, really complicated. It's not just a Penn State game. It's the games before they played well. Then it's the next game. You don't want the Penn State loss to also cost you the Ohio State loss because you want to make a point. But there is a time when the line needs to be drawn. You're not incorrect. You just better be sure, because it could end up, if it doesn't work, there's no guarantee that method would work as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't think we answered anything, but
if we did, we'd
asked
be
the
making
important questions.
We'd be making millions of dollars in coaching.
Exactly.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Why aren't we doing that?
The three of us, I think let's just package it to the next NCAA opening. We know everything. We got the shot doctor. We got the motivational speaker in the middle. The thinkers group you run.
The three-headed monster at coach.
And then
Jerod would totally be the player's coach. Andy be over with his head in the analytics book somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be a great staff.
All right. Coming up in our third segment, we're going to answer your questions. We will talk about Rob Finney. We'll assess what Indiana needs to do from here on out to feel good about making the tournament, and talk a little bit about what we see coming up in the Big Ten. So stick with us here on the Assembly Call. That is next. See, I don't know that I would be the player's coach. I mean,
all right.
Well, okay. I would deliver. Well, yeah, but I'm big on discipline and accountability. So I wouldn't be yelling and screaming, but I'd be pretty firm with what I expect.
Here's a good story, real quick, and then a bad story in my experience. The bad story is we had a kid move away, played sophomore year and then moved away junior, came back senior year, was hurt, and I didn't make him. I had a rule if you had to dress out for practice, even if you were hurt, and I let that slide. And it hurt the team chemistry. And that was an honest mistake because the kid was not going to play, and he had been a kind of a problem kid, and I just wanted him out of the way. But the players, that's that message that you said. I sent a silent message that he can get away with that, and that was a mistake that I had made. And boy, we are tough on ourselves too, people. The coaches it eats you up when you make a mistake and you don't move the program forward. Another one was I had a kid, 6'5", could dunk. I put him on JV because he wouldn't follow team rules. And I was like, I got to play this kid. He's so good. But finally I said, here's the deal. You don't play hard. I'm going to sub you out. And when you're ready to play hard, just go to the bench and put yourself in and tell me you're going to play hard, and I'll tell you who you're going in for. He didn't like to be yelled at. And the whole first year I yelled at him. Didn't get anywhere. Finally, when it was just, the buzzer would ring and someone would go get him, he'd go, I'm not playing hard, am I? Nope. And in 30 seconds, he'd be back up. So you learn from your mistakes. You try different things, but that's one where I didn't do it right, and there's one where I fell into it, but there was some failure built into that as well. And with that mental side, man, that's what I like about our team right now. Our team is so tough. We don't even have to deal with it, man. We don't play well, and we win.
Your Western team, you mean?
Western team right now is these dudes are flat out garden. We've been only giving up 50 points once in the last 9 games, and we won that one 73-53. I mean, tough.
I gotta say,
those kids are just tough.
I think Archie may need to pull like the Bull Durham thing where he just tries to scare him, like just act like he's crazy.
Lollygaggers.
Yeah. What's our record?
It sounded like that's what happened after the Northwestern game.
8-16. How did we ever win 8? It's a miracle. You did scare him. Scare him.
Yeah, I don't know.
Scare him.
I'm always somewhat hesitant to kind of start exploring conversations like that because we're talking about it with such limited knowledge, and there's never a right answer. But it's. I guess the frustrating thing to me is like I believe in Archie's vision for what the program can look like and what he talks about, and then when you don't see it out there, it's like
here's the thing. I know what I see, and I know when you hear what Archie says, you want Indiana to be what Virginia is a little bit. Like kind of that just defend like crazy and then make it work on offense somehow.
Well, no, I want us to be a hell of a lot better on offense than that. I mean, I'd like for us to have more of a plan.
Because the concoction of players they had to have to win that title had to be perfect.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so – no, I know. I'm just teasing you with the Virginia thing. But it's hard to win that way. It's not impossible. It's not like it's difficult as far as conceptually, but it's hard to win that way, playing that way all the time when you don't as we've said, shoot the ball well.
No, I want to win like you won at Dayton with teams that shot the three and like got out and moved.
Because when you shoot well, you can make up for a lot of bad play. You really can. I mean, you can win games you don't deserve to win just by cashing a bunch of threes. You hit 10 threes in the game. That's 30 points. You've got banked. And then you
won a Big Ten title that way.
I mean, really, it's true. And you get hot from three, it changes the calculus of the game. You can play terrible defense and score 80 points and win. It's so that's the one thing that I think of this program. We talk about getting somebody in there who's a shooting expert or something like that. This program needs shooters if you're going to play defense,
competent lead guard.
Yeah,
Jimmy's and the Joes.
Yeah. You need to go get them. And hey, it to some degree, what saying like we don't this roster, blah blah blah. We don't have this, we don't have that. Some of that is, on the coaches for not recruiting the right guys or not getting
a lot of it is.
I mean, it has to be like, but that's the thing is I do tell people and they're like, why didn't you recruit them? It's like they do recruit guys to fit those roles. They just miss them. And you're going to miss them. And if you miss,
you got to start winning some.
And also if you miss, you got to have a backup plan and a backup plan for that and a backup plan for that, So
Jerod,
and the guys they have coming in, I mean, are tough dudes, Yeah. Trey Galloway and Leo, like you're not gonna have to worry about those guys' motors.
Here's something else I believe about coaches. Your greatest strength is your greatest weakness, and we all like to win, and we get stubborn, right? So here's where your line in the sand comment is perfect and correct. Coaches need to do more of that and not be concerned about winning. But in this day of firing and this day of talk radio and podcast hosts and all that stuff, analyzing every move, you get stuck in winning mode. And then everything is about winning instead of doing things the right way. And, boy, that's a disease. My best mentors would remind me of that. Hey, process. Don't worry about the win. Don't worry about the win. Well, I got this person and this person and this mom. Don't worry about it. Process.
Yes.
And that's why everyone needs good mentors, and hopefully Archie has one. But I think sometimes maybe when he goes back to those same guys, like Ryan said, sometimes when Davante's done for me in the first half. You got a chance to win if Devante hits 3 threes, so you put him in there, but it really wasn't the right decision,
Yeah, and last night against Penn State, the reason why I was tweeting about it, I was like, why are any of these guys on the floor? You've got a couple walk-ons on the bench. You could rotate it because you were down 15 on the road. You're not coming back and winning that game. Like, we all know it.
That's my thing. Once it was out of range.
Yank them and make a big sign of yanking and be like, hey, this is what's going to be like. That's how Eric Sir got discovered. I mean, he just played in a game, and he played well, and he showed some effort.
But you got to be careful, again, that confidence. They just played 3 games in a row, and then all of a sudden one bad game, and the coach is going to make a scene about me. That stuff gets communicated to recruits and stuff, too. I mean, oh, wow, we played – if they win Maryland and played this at Penn State, and then you bench kids for the last 4 minutes out of anger – whoa, that you got to then get the right kids to handle that kind of coaching as well.
I mean, you don't have to do like what Crean did to Devontae Green when he threw that oop in the Rutgers game and like go yell at him. Although sometimes that's warranted. But again,
what I would say,
like, I don't think you have to rant and rave. But if guys aren't out there giving effort, guys, you aren't playing hard. We're going to let the walk-ons play. Like,
what I would say, Coach, is you're right. They played 3 good games in a row. But they also, before the season isn't a 3-game-old season.
No, you're right. You're right.
You've seen it all year at different points. So,
and where you guys are right,
its ugly head, make it happen.
Is that if this could get ugly if they lose 9 out of 10, and the way they play, the floor is so low that it's not beyond possibility.
Here's the thing, and people haven't if they lose at Ohio State, which is very possible, it's tough to win on the road in the Big Ten. They're under 500 in the Big Ten. And they've lost 3 in a row heading into Purdue, and you never know what you're going to get from a Purdue game. We're
going to be down though. Or what?
Cassius
7% winning percentage.
Yep. Cassius Winston, Izzo said it after our game, and because of the tragedy in that young man's life, his game has gone up and down mentally, and Izzo talks about meeting with him 2 times, 3 times a day, and that they're not seeing the Cassius Winston that they saw before. And I'm not saying that's equal to any of our mess. That is more life and serious, but that does show how the mental side of it with a top quality player can be so fragile.
Yeah.
And it takes special coaches and special people to fight whatever is happening, whether it's a serious issue like Cassius or just a casual issue like Indiana is having. It just takes, and you didn't. Then I want to appreciate Joey Brunk more, because we don't have that issue. He just plays bad, but he plays hard when he plays bad. Trace Jackson Davis, and I think Rob does as well, although he can get a little aloof at times. But
when Rob's not playing hard, I don't think it's because Rob is not giving effort. I think it's because
exactly
Rob's overthinking things,
and the injury funk, I think. But so I'm just turning it to a positive to say I'm going to appreciate those kids that do. And if Archie is ultimately held accountable because he only has 6 out of 11 guys that are playing the right way, that's a recruiting issue and maybe an inside coaching issue. But it is so tough, and that's where I normally say, you know what, if you're wearing a jersey, you only get so many. I can't fit into a jersey anymore. I would do anything to play again. And in the week that we lost one of the game's greatest, who's known for his work ethic, there should never be a situation, whether you're down 20 or you're down whatever, where you're not diving on the floor. Yeah. And that's where I get mad at the players more than the coaches, because they're in the arena.
Yeah. All right, let's finish this. Let's do this. We're giving these people way too much free content.
Wow. Okay.
Hey, we could charge in between like $1 per session.
Would you like to keep watching? No.
Would you like Jerod to ask a follow-up question on this topic? $5.
Listener's choice.
Oh, that's funny. By the way, Brian did say something in here that's interesting. He said analytics kept the walk-ons on the bench, potentially ruined those adjusted efficiency defense numbers. That's not a ridiculous point. I mean, especially for the some of the analytics sites that don't, that keep the stats during blowouts. Some of them remove them. But I don't know how many coaches actually think that way, but it wouldn't be ridiculous to think that way given how much people look at those advanced analytics. So
it is the reason that Indiana's net is so low, the wide margins, because their record is better than teams that have lost 8-9 games but closer margins, like LSU has lost a lot of close games to not as decent teams. But it's the margin and the efficiency that's really hurting Indiana. And it's just about time where these coaches start paying attention to that. It's like when you're down 6 with 15 seconds to go, I wouldn't foul. I might take the loss, the probability, and keep that net high, because you foul and push it up to 8, 9, or 10. That's a real good point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we only have like 5 minutes left for this, so we'll just do this. So be on the lookout for me to close it, and then we can answer the rest of the questions after, as much as we have time for. I know you have rice to eat and stuff.
I do very much have food to eat. It's not just rice. Yeah, that's all we have. It's all we can afford out here in California. It's tough times in the winter.
It's cost of living is tough out there. All right, here we go.
Hi, this is James Blackman Jr. I never miss an open three, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call. Go Hoosiers.
Welcome back to the Assembly Call. Thank you, James. I'm Jerod Morris here with Coach Brian Tonsoni and Ryan Phillips. Remember to subscribe to our email newsletter that we send out every week and after every game. Text IU to 66866 or go to assemblycall.com. And guys, let's hit up a few mailbag questions here with the few minutes that we have left. All of these questions submitted via our private IU basketball discussion community, which you can learn more about and join at assemblycall.com/community. Coach, from Jim Tom Hoosier, what do you think we still need to do to make the tournament? How confident are you that we can get it done?
I'm confident. I think 20 is an automatic, no worry on selection day. I think 18 and 19, and depending on what games you win, with the strength of the Big Ten, makes you really nervous on Selection Sunday. The bubble's awful. Everyone listening, I mean, there are teams when we got an 11-10 team as the first team out. So there's some room.
At Purdue,
I want to get there. Purdue and Minnesota are first teams out for us. Just too many losses. So you don't want to get 12, 13, 14. Last year, a lot of 13-loss teams made it in.
Yeah.
But and the last 10 don't count. So I think we're pretty safe unless the wheels just totally implode.
Yeah. Okay, Ryan, this is from Bill. Is Rob Finney still struggling from the assortment of injuries that he's had this year, or is it a sophomore slump? Maybe not having Romeo being the focus of the defense, he adds.
No, I don't think it's a sophomore slump. I think he's just had such a disjointed season. And he's also this year had to take on a lot of responsibility when he has been out there. And I think that we've seen it where in some games he's really good. But we've been told repeatedly, and there's no reason not to believe this, that he's not going to be 100% all year. And that will cause problems for you. You know, when you're injured, you don't have the confidence you do when you're healthy. And so you never will, because you're just aware of the fact that you're injured. And so I think that until he's fully healthy, it's hard to judge Rob super harshly. He has not played well a lot of times this year, and it's not the guy that we were expecting this year. We were expecting the team to be lifted up by his improvement. That hasn't happened this year, but there have been games where you say, oh yeah, there's Rob Finney. That's the guy we were expecting. And he's been key to a lot of good wins. So you really just hope that he keeps getting better as the year goes on. But yeah, it's been a struggle this year, and I'm sure that not having Romeo take all, him being a focal point of the defense does have something to do with it. But Trace Jackson Davis is still there, and he's going to get all the attention, and the post guys are going to get all the attention. So I'm not really that worried about that aspect of it. I just think he's not healthy.
God, I miss having a guy on the wing that can go create a shot and get into the lane.
Oh yeah, would that be helpful to this team, you think?
Yeah, maybe just a little bit. Let's see, Coach, this one's definitely for you from Bill. How much of the success of Joey, Trace, and Duran is the result of Mike Roberts being on the staff?
I have a mad crush on Coach Roberts. Man, I was 3 feet away from him Sunday. I was down there, and they held me up, and I was just fantastically enthused to see that greatness walk by. So absolutely, they need to turn him loose on the rest of the team, and the casualness will go away. I don't know why I have a mad crush. I like his intensity. I know he's trying. Go, Coach Roberts.
Valentine's Day message from the assembly call. Find someone that speaks about you, like Coach speaks about Mike Roberts.
He's good looking too. Not, I mean.
Okay. All right, it's gone too far.
That's enough. That's enough out of you. Mute him. Mute him.
Let's see, Ryan. I wanted to add one more. Okay, from Patrick. Are our shooting problems due to player skill, scheme, or lack of execution of the current offense?
I think
30 seconds.
All three. I think that I see a lot of bad footwork. I see a lot of bad technique on releases and things like that, where they're just not honed in the way they should be. And then there's also issues with scheme, spreading the floor. But, somebody who can reliably knock down shots opens up the floor a whole lot. But I think that you just see a little bit of everything in there. And I think we need to be better at player development. We need to be better at the skills development. And we also need to be better at making sure that those shooters find time to get their shots off.
And just keep Jerome on the court, because I think he's going to start making some shots.
I do.
I really do. Okay.
That's it. We're done. No more questions.
That's going to have to do it for us on this week's episode of the Assembly Call. If you want to see us do the show live, join us at assemblycall.com on Thursday nights for the live broadcast of our Assembly Call radio recording. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for producing a lot of the music that you hear on the show. And thank you for listening. We will talk to you again Saturday after IU Ohio State. Until then,
take it from me, Robert Johnson. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
Thank everybody for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
Here I come, Mrs. Stansoni.
Still funny.
How much longer, man?
Well, how much longer
there are a couple drops. There are a couple drops I don't want in that. I think at the end of the year we should each get to pick one to remove.
My oldest son listens to the podcast on the way to work every Friday. And he's tried to share it with some of his coworkers, and there is his dad saying, "Come on, Mrs. Tom." You know how awkward that is.
End of the season, Coach. We'll let you take that one out. I think that's fair. We each get one undo.
Hey, if there's ever a drop that makes you guys uncomfortable, let me know.
And we get white out. I think we should get one white out at the end of each season.
No. if one ever makes you uncomfortable, let me know and I'll take it out.
No, I'm
I'll take it.
I'm teasing. Mrs. Coach just laughs at me and shakes her head and hands me the to-do list.
My girlfriend has been super nice to wait for me for dinner, and I believe she's starving and hates me now.
All right, tell her we said hi. Tell her we're looking forward to meeting her.
I will. She's looking forward to meeting everybody.
Make sure she packs properly.
Yeah, we will. Don't worry, I'll help her.
Long sleeve T-shirts.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
I'll talk to you Saturday.
Yep. See you guys Saturday.
All right, Coach. You want to run through these last few questions real quick?
Sure.
Okay, so here's a fun one. This is from JD. I was going to do this, but we didn't have time to do it. Is this still recording? Yeah, it's still recording. Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. From JD, we are about halfway through the Big Ten season. Buy, sell, or hold on where each team is ranked in the current league standings compared to where they will finish at the end of the season. I started going through the top of the Big Ten standings, and I'm like, sell. But then I'm like, well, wait a second. Someone has to jump up and take their spot. Because, no Big Ten team seems good enough to be, second or third. Illinois and Rutgers do not seem like, second, third place Big Ten teams. I don't buy Iowa because they always fade. But yet, if you're not going to buy them, then you're Maryland, Penn State. Who do you feel comfortable with coming up and taking their spot? So I am going to struggle with this, but you may have a better idea than I do. So Michigan State. I think we're both buying them, right?
Absolutely. Best team in the league by far.
So with Illinois, I think I'm buying Illinois. They've got experienced guards. They've got DeSumo that can go get you a bucket. They've got some good bigs. I don't know. And I guess to answer this question, you got to be buying them in second place. No one else I feel more confident in right now.
They're 8-2, and I saw them live at Purdue, and I got the stuff from Delphi Bracketology. I got media credentials. They are just really playing well. Now that can turn on a dime, with the buy or sell thing here, but they really seem to be tough, and they have the pieces. They have really good inside game. DeSumo is a closer, and Frazier, when he's hitting threes, can really stretch the floor. And then they just got a bunch of tough dudes on the wings, and Really love reading about Coach Underwood and the changes he made. He brought the NBA guys in, and that's I don't root for anyone in the Big Ten, maybe until the tournament. But boy, they're fun to watch, and one of the things I like about media access for our kids is just listening to the coach. So as a coach, for me, I get firsthand knowledge. I can read their body language. I can see the players, and even though all that's available. You get to see some different things, and boy, he does a nice job. So I'm buying them. I think Rutgers and Iowa, I'm going to say Iowa to fade more than Rutgers. I think Rutgers defense, for some reason, I just think it's going to be their year.
They play a lot of road games. I think they've got 6 road games left.
There you go.
4 at home.
Iowa, Penn State.
So I'm buying Maryland to move up. I think Michigan State, Illinois, and Maryland are the 3 best teams. Iowa, until they prove that they can make it through a February and March without fading in the Big Ten. Now, their defense is better this year, so they might be more well-equipped to do it, but I just don't trust them.
Correct. I would be right there with you.
But then, you start looking. Of all the teams, so you've got Maryland Maryland in 5th right now, Penn State in 6th. And then you start looking at, of all the rest of the teams, how does Indiana stack up? Do you feel better about Wisconsin than Indiana? I don't, with some of the turmoil that they have right now.
Right.
I would take Indiana over Wisconsin. Would you take Minnesota over Indiana? I wouldn't.
Here's the teams I think will move up, and I know we're trying to say buy or sell. I wouldn't be surprised to see Ohio State and Michigan correct their run and make a run in the other direction, because I don't think because you just lose 4 in a row, you're automatically bad for a long period of time. Penn State lost 3 in a row.
Yeah,
they've turned it around and won 3 in a row again.
They got to get healthy. Both those teams, have, now Carton. By the way, Carton apparently he's stepping away from the program for mental health issues. Really? I saw. Yeah, so I don't have details on this.
And not to relive what we just got done talking, but there's an example of there's a lot of stuff going on with these young people this day that it's not just. You and I used to, if we got yelled at and got on end line, boy, we didn't want that to happen again. And there was some innate toughness. And these kids are special. They're good people. I'm not trying to bad, but it's I see it in the classroom, Jerod, every day. Doesn't make them bad people, but they are a lot different learners and athletes.
No, and that has to be taken into account. I know in my own mind, I approach all of these conversations and assessments knowing that I only know about 5%. So we're on here to talk and kind of give opinions, and we want to be as definitive as we can be, but you never know what's going on in the locker room with individual guys, and so whatever he's going through.
Yeah, let's hope he gets okay, and that's nothing to be happy that he's not playing. He's
No, Michigan, I don't trust a first-year coach in this league going down the stretch. I think that, they've got Xavier Simpson, so that helps, but
here's the thing I'm looking forward to. He doesn't take points away from the star player. He just lets the star player go off. So TJD, bet the over on TJD scoring points.
They can't guard anybody in the post.
They just don't. And Garza has gone off for 40-some and all of that. That's what I said. Indiana can beat every team left on their schedule because they don't have Michigan State. They don't have Maryland. Illinois will be tough on the road. I will be in attendance at that game. I got my guy who gets media credentials just emails every school in the country. I think if we had flight vouchers, we'd be flying to UCLA. But, I think every other team on the roster, I don't mind playing if we're playing more towards the ceiling,
Yeah, there's no reason that Indiana can't finish right where they are in 7th.
10-10 would be a really good season. I know we don't want to accept losses, and
it would be a good season for this team.
Yes. And a stepping stone for the program.
Yes.
And then from there on out, the bottom of where you want to be is a 8, 9, 10 seed at worst, and you want to be in competition for the highest.
Yep.
Seeds. I agree.
Okay, so we kind of went through that.
It's just like the standings.
I know.
Jerod.
It's hard.
Here's a bunch of teams we could buy, sell, hold, pick them out of a hat.
Yes.
Big Ten 2020.
And then Nebraska and Northwestern are down at the bottom, except for Seth Davis, who thinks Nebraska could possibly win the Big Ten tournament. I know he said that in jest.
Ooh, that's bad.
I know. He was kidding, but we don't need to talk about that. Okay, so Michael said, what does the Big Ten history show compared to the number of road losses that we've seen this year? Always been tough to win on the road in the Big Ten, but this year seems different. We had Max said, why are Big Ten teams so otherworldly good at home this year? So here's what I would say about this. The way that started, where it was like 41-6 or whatever for home teams, was a statistical outlier and was pretty much presented as that at the time, because I don't know. I think the highest conference had been like in the mid-70s was the highest, and that was, like a small conference many years ago, was the highest that home teams had ever done in terms of winning percentage. So it was always going to regress back toward the mean, and it has. I don't know what the percentage is now, but you've seen a lot more road games be won. That said, the percentage is still pretty high. Do you have hypotheses for why it seems so much more difficult this year? To me, I think part of it is that you just have a lot of good teams. Like there aren't a lot of great teams. And if you're going to go win on the road repeatedly in this conference, you got to have great teams with really good guards and, experienced teams that have played together. And you just don't have a lot of that. So you've got teams that are good enough at home when they're jumping and the arena's going and they're feeling good about themselves. They can run another good team out of the gym. But I just don't think you have enough teams that can really go in on the road consistently and play the way you need to play to beat even a mediocre team in their home gym. And the Big Ten has some of the most intimidating venues in the country. So to me, it's kind of a mixture of all that stuff.
Yeah, there's no top-heavy tier of teams in the Big Ten. There's not real top-heavy tiers of players. Cassius Winston is really good, but he's a 4-year really good player. There's no influx of major NBA super talent. When you look at any of the teams, there's players who are going to play in the NBA, but none that are just, wow, it's going to be hard to beat them no matter where they play. And I think that's happening in college basketball. There's been a lot of podcasts about, the one and dones and the G League and people leaving, and you see Wiseman leaving for the pros. There's just a lot of issues. I, for one, just an old man traditionalist, I kind of like it because, if you want to go to the NBA, go to the NBA. And let's just have college basketball back being where it is. Sad to have maybe not the best talent come in for a year or two. I understand that. but this parity makes it really good. You turn on a DePaul versus Xavier game at Xavier, and it's not a 30-point blowout. It's a game to watch. It makes bracketology a living nightmare for our group. But you know,
hey, your number one seeds this year are going to be Gonzaga, San Diego State, and Dayton.
Yeah, and so it's. But I think for the college game, if you're just a college purist, I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's not just two teams beating up on everybody. And it's a lot better in the Big Ten than it is in the ACC, where only 3 teams are in our bracket right now, and other conferences where, you know, they're not good teams, and there's a lot of not good teams. So, but yeah, the Big Ten is just a really tough. There's some good coaches, and I know every program hates their coach, but you know, there's some good coaches in this league that some have had some success, some haven't. You know, you can say what you want about personalities and everything, but these guys can coach. And again, I'm biased towards coaches, but I think Chris Collins is a heck of a coach. He doesn't have the Jimmies and the Joes. Maybe he's not a great recruiter, and that'll end up being his downfall. You know, Greg Gard, I don't like the style of play, and there's some issues now with Kobe King, but, you know, he's done a remarkable job taking over for Bo Ryan. And when Bo Ryan was in, I mean, go right down the list. Matt Painter, I think, is one of the best coaches in the country, and his team's struggling. So that's fun to watch for me because I just really enjoy the head-to-head matchups with coaches.
Yep. Okay, a couple more real quick from Patrick. We've gotten a few of these. How should we start looking at the Big Ten in terms of teams that we need to lose or win to improve our tourney odds? Are you even looking at that yet?
Yep, because I had our spreadsheet up because I knew there was going to be a question for it. Right now, Indiana is on our list is seeded right around Rutgers 7-8 seed line. We've had them as a 7 for the most part. I just moved them down to an 8 because other teams won. But Ohio State, Michigan, our teams below are right around Indiana right now. Wisconsin is falling below. So, yeah, I start rooting against those teams. And if the Michigan States, Marylands, and Illinois can go on runs, that's gonna help us regardless of what happens. So you want to stay against them. And as well for our Indiana fans, Andy's the best bracketologist. I will always say that because he gave me the start. So go to Inside the Hall and look at his stuff. But if you need a second opinion, come to DelphiBracketology.com. Only when you don't trust Andy or you want a second opinion. But we have brackets up twice a week. And watch the teams that are below our seed list. You want Oklahoma to keep losing, Wichita State, St. Mary's. Get rid of those teams or keep those teams down, and Indiana makes it. So, yeah, I root really hard now for those teams to keep losing. It's a breath of fresh air. Florida got beat. Yeah, all right. North Carolina State. Yeah. Keep losing on the bubble.
And if you need a third opinion, go to Mike DeCourcy at Fox.
Yeah, you know what? I tell you what, I have really, because of your work with Mike DeCourcy, really enjoyed his commentary. You know, when he said that Indiana's not committed to doing the right things, I think that helped me see, too, that it's a combination of coach not holding them accountable, but it's also players need to be committed. He just makes some really good points.
Yeah, he does. Last one. Hi. My wife just came in.
So Ryan's girlfriend
you want to come say hi? No.
Took him away. Now your wife comes in. My wife just stays away.
Oh, yeah. So this is from JD. Why hasn't the program hired a motivational teacher to help the coaches on tools to motivate? Simple companies do it. Why not try it? And this can seem like kind of a ridiculous question, but the reason I wanted to ask it, yeah, and look, and we don't know like who's been brought in, what kind of training they do. I do hope, and I don't know, what they do, but I do hope that the coaches are, going out in the off season, and whether it's learning from other coaches, going to seminars with leadership, like whatever it is, there's always ways to expand your horizons and find something new. And so I don't know what's being done, but I think JD, does bring in something interesting just in terms of expanding those horizons and finding new perspectives. Because like we talked about, whether it's how to reach a guy or, the psychology of it, all that stuff. the more that you can learn, the more tools that you have in your tool belt, it's only going to help you as you encounter more situations. So hopefully that's something that is part of the staff's process.
I'll tell you, any good coach reads and asks good questions and studies not only the X's and O's, but the psychology of the game. My bookshelf has a ton of leadership. Again, it doesn't mean that I've always done the correct thing, but a good coach is thirsty to make sure they're getting better for the young men that they lead, for the program that they lead, and I would hope that Archie and staff are doing some of that. It gets a little tricky when you hire a coach to do that throughout the whole season, bringing in a speaker. Coaches do that all the time. I know my son's at Indiana State as a manager. They have speakers and former players come in trying to get that mental edge.
I think it's overrated for the team.
Yeah.
The way that I read JD's question was for the staff, for the coaches.
Oh, to coach the staff.
Yeah, because he said, why hasn't the program hired a motivation teacher to help the coaches on tools to motivate?
Well, one, there's only so many spots available. You'd have to finagle it like you do what Derek Elston's old spot was. I think was a finagled thing. There's NCAA rules on how many coaches you can pay, how many can be on there, and that's always probably going to go to basketball operations and stuff like that. That doesn't mean that's a bad option. I think there's just some structural things that prevent hiring too many. Someone to come in and fix the shooting for the team, someone to come in and fix the mental approach for the coach. But I do think you try to go to clinics. You hear other psychologists talk, sports psychologists, sports trainers, and go listen to them. Podcasts, again, they ought to be doing that themselves instead of having someone tell them that, because that's how you, the Thinker's Notebook. I mean, there's just really good things out there to help you improve.
The assembly call, don't. Archie, don't listen to segment 2 of this show. Oh, man. Hey, you know what? We should all be improving ourselves. And getting better.
Not a bad idea, JD. Not a bad idea, but I just think it's probably not going to happen.
Chris says, I'm not blaming coach or individual players, but why is it so freaking hard to win at this program? It's Indiana. Do you want to tackle this now or save it for the offseason?
Well, I think the quick question is, we're just in a run of bad breaks. And whether that's self-imploding bad breaks or self-inflicted, whatever the right word is, we're just having bad breaks, from injuries to guys not playing through tough second halves to I don't know what. It just seems like we're in a bad run. And hopefully
to be fair, we've gotten some good breaks. The end of the Michigan State game and some of the close games that we've won. Those were some good breaks. But I think generally you're right with some of the injuries that this team has dealt with, and
the losses on recruits coming down second. It just stinks to be second, because you get your hopes up, and the whole Garcia thing. Everyone was fired up, and we've just had some tough situations. And I just like to see it change, obviously.
Agreed. All right, Coach. Good work tonight, as always.
We'll appreciate it.
Shoot, we're 9 days away from having dinner at Little Zagreb.
What do you have a time, or you want to send it to me, or I don't know if you want to?
Did I not send you the time for dinner?
I don't know if you did or not.
Oh, it's Friday at 7, I believe.
Okay, I just need to know departure time for us here in Delphi, and get to, get down there. But Mrs. Tonsoni, I'll chase her around the quad, Little Zagreb's down to Kirkwood.
Just chase her all around Bloomington.
Through the sample gates.
And then you're gonna have to pester. You have to pester Ryan's mom.
Can your mom bring some tiramisu? Absolutely. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We just Amy just said during dinner tonight that we're getting real close, and we're spending the whole weekend down there, Friday night and Saturday night, and it's always good. It is always good. Everyone in the chat mob, for people who stop by and say hello, whether it's at the tailgate, a baseball game, or wherever. It's really cool. RC, the MC, is a guy who teaches and raps from Evansville. We're going to try to make a video. We're going to try to coordinate and make a hoops.
Is he going to be there?
Yeah, I think he's going to be there, and at some point in the
That's
spring,
awesome.
we're going to try to make an Indiana hoop montage rap song. So it's,
man.
I mean, the number of people, it is just, you know this because you've done this from 2011, and when people reach out to you and everything, man, people at our games, high school games, come up and guys wearing the chat mob shirt and assembly call shirts and waving to me. I don't even know who they are. It's like it's totally I don't know. It's crazy. But thank you to all the chat mob. That's something too to remember when times are tough. How awesome this community is, and the people in the community too. If you're not in the community, the online community, that's fantastic too. A lot of good comments, a lot of good place to vent for some people and everything. But Jeff Marlowe, I just saw pop in, and he does some good things in there. A good coach as well of the game here in the state of Indiana. So, no, I'm looking forward to next weekend. I told the basketball coach I had no scouting Friday or Saturday, no practice.
Nope.
You're on your own.
You're on vacation.
Now, if we win Saturday, we will be 10 in a row, Jerod. So we don't need to practice on Saturday.
Getting overconfident. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here live. Thank you for listening on the podcast. And hopefully we'll see a lot of you on Saturday. Let us know if you're going to be there. See you at the game. See you at Switchyard. Let's celebrate an IU victory. But before that, we got to go win Saturday. So let's beat Ohio State. Talk to you guys on the postgame show.